Greetings, Father Joe here, your friendly neighborhood pastor, coming to you from St. Patrick's Church in lovely Highland Mills, New York. Today is Friday of the 6th week in Ordinary Time, and we are continuing in the letter of St. James. We are in chapter 2 of St. James. And St. James tells the people that faith without works is dead. He gives the example if you see someone who is in need and you don't help them with food or clothes, but you say, hey, stay warm and well fed, well, you haven't done anything to help them. And at that point, St. James says, so also faith of itself, if it does not have works, and for works here I think we could mean charity, is dead. So I thought it might be helpful to just go over a few distinctions by what we mean or what we say is faith. So we know what dead faith is. It's faith without works or without charity. And the church does teach that. But when we use the word faith, sometimes we use it to mean the creed, what we believe, or the doctrines of the church. But apparently the word that we use is faith. It can be the virtue of faith or it can be an act of faith. The virtue of faith is a grace that is given to us at baptism, which really gives us the capacity to believe or to make an act of faith. That would be the other type of faith. Virtue is one, and the other is the act of faith, a personal decision. And when, sometimes when people say, I believe because I was baptized, frequently people mean that they have this virtue, they have the capacity, I am able to believe. Or they might mean, I have this assent to Catholic doctrines. It's one of the problems with our religious ed program, or the mentality is that we need to give children the faith, meaning the doctrines. But that is not what we are called to. We are called to have an active, personal, living faith. We can have this. God gives us the capacity to make an act of faith, and this is strengthened incredibly at our baptism, because even before baptism, some people have faith. It's a response to God. In baptism, we are given a supernatural virtue, the supernatural gift of faith. But if we don't use that to make an actual act of faith, we're missing the point. It's like saying, well, yeah, I could run a marathon. I use this as an example because I ran marathons. I can run a marathon. I've never run more than a mile, but I'm capable of doing it. Until, in my case, I actually went out and ran a marathon. I used that capacity and I turned it into reality. And so our faith in God must express itself personally in an actual desire or a decision to believe in God and to follow Him. That is the act of faith. So the question comes up, if people, they make their first communion, or more frequently, people go to confession. Actually, I wish they would go to confession more frequently. But if we go to confession, we don't make an actual act of faith, or in confession, it might be an act of repentance. If we don't make that actual act, well, there's a question I would say we don't get the grace. I wouldn't say it's invalid, but there are some theologians who question the validity of a sacrament if it is done without true sincerity or without an actual act of faith. St. James is telling people that not only do they need to make an act of faith, but in order to realize, in order to know that that faith is actual, it must express itself in charity. He says, for just as the body without a spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead. So, God gives us the virtue of faith. We must make an act of faith. Dead faith is when we have made an act of faith, but without charity. And again, sometimes we speak of the faith as being the Christian belief or Catholic doctrines. So the creed, something like that, which, by the way, are also important, but I'm not going to cover that. Another way to say this, which I like, is faith is fidelity. If you're married to somebody and you're not having an affair, you could say that that was fidelity, but it's just the barest minimum. You know, if I'm married to somebody, I don't want to simply not have an affair. I want to be united with them. I want to work at having a better relationship. That's fidelity. And in our relationship with God, it's not enough to simply not sin. We need to choose God, and we need to grow deeper in our relationship with Him. God bless you.